About 2.5 years ago, Terry Swenson, our Director of Public Relations, came to me and said, I would really like to see homelessness through the eyes of the homeless, as opposed to my going out into the community and taking photographs. I'd really like to see their world through their eyes. And she'd come up with this idea of distributing cameras to the homeless and working with them to get them to photograph their world.
About 15 years ago, I started taking pictures of the homeless community in downtown Houston. As time went on, I decided that I wanted to know more about these individuals rather than just taking pictures of them. I wanted to know more about their stories. And then I decided that I thought it might be interesting to give disposable cameras to people that are actually homeless and let them take the pictures of things that are going on in their lives, things that maybe challenge them on a daily basis, things that they aspire to, and maybe take pictures of places that they've been that they never want to go back to. And I handed these disposable cameras out to Search Homeless Services, also the U.S. Vets Initiative, to get pictures of what homeless veterans are experiencing. And the most recent picture of this exhibit is the homeless youth. And a lot of the youth that we're dealing with in this exhibit come from Angel Reach, which is in Conroe, as well as Montgomery County Youth Services.
Angel Reach is an organization that was created to sort of fill the gap in the foster care system, first with families that are taking care of their relatives and not receiving any benefits from the state. And then second, we work with a population of youth that age out of foster care when they're 18.
So the Angel Reach exhibit is our third exhibit, and in many ways has been the most uplifting and the most heartbreaking. It's been very exciting to watch Terry develop relationships with these young men and young women, and to encourage them to go back to their history and see where they came from and photograph it so that we can see it and we can share their history with them. And then to see photographs of what life is like for them now, and just to see the hope that these kids have, and the hope for a future that the Angel Reach volunteers and the staff have been able to help these kids accomplish.
I went to Angel Reach, and Sandra Carpenter allowed me to come talk to a group of the kids. And I told them about the project, and I explained that this would be an opportunity for them to express themselves through photography, to show what it really looks like to live homeless. A lot of them took the cameras. They're a little hesitant about it, but they did take them. One girl returned her camera, and she had one picture on it. And she was a cutter. She actually harms herself by cutting, and she wanted to show that. So she had worn a tank top, and she had done a self-portrait of her arms where she had shown where her scars were. And that, for her, was the one thing she wanted to express. A lot of the kids are just struggling. They're in and out of Angel Reach or at Montgomery County Youth Services, and they're just trying as hard as they can to make sense out of their lives, and that's probably the biggest challenge for them right now. They don't even think about what they're going to do with their lives because no one's ever spent time talking to them and telling them that they can have goals. They've never had anybody teach them how to drive a car, and that's really hard to imagine what that could be like when you have children of your own and you know that's what you're doing. You're training them to look forward to becoming productive citizens, and these kids have never had that.
Some of the youth that have taken photographs that are in this exhibit have been in our program 2 and 3 times. Maybe the first time that they came, they just needed a place to crash. They didn't really want a program, didn't trust people to speak into their life, didn't trust people's advice, didn't want to follow the rules of society. and so they were discharged. But then they have reapplied since then. In fact, 40% of our clients that get discharged from our program do reapply after they've lived on the streets for a while and have seen that they really want to have a better life.
I got asked by a lady named Terry that if I wanted to share where I practically came from before I started receiving help through Angel Reach and other facilities. And I said, yeah, you know, I thought she was strange, but you know. I decided to humor it a little, but you know, I didn't expect myself to actually get in the car and go. And when I went at first, you know, when I saw the place where I used to sleep, the rubble and everything that I slept on, my food and everything still being there, you know, I thought to myself, man, I'd come a long way. And it was interesting because I went from sleeping under a bridge, literally, in the dirt, to fishing for food, to, you know, living behind a bar and in a small shack, and then finally, you know, later on down the road, I'm here. You know, I didn't used to dress like this, or, you know, have a phone or anything to my name, and now I'm slowly progressing.
A young woman that lived in Acres Homes, for instance. She grew up there with an extremely abusive mother. Her father did try to protect her as much as possible, but he knew he was dying and she was about to turn 18. And he took her aside and told her that he wanted her to leave the house after he was gone because he knew that she would not survive living in a household this way, and she needed to get out of Acres Homes. This young lady ended up leaving and couch surfing for several months and was finally picked up by Angel Reach in Conroe, and she, working through them, is now attending college at Prairie View A&M. So that's one of the positive stories that came out of this. I had other cameras come back with pictures of gang members and prostitutes and drug dealers, because that's a lot of what these kids are hanging out with, because that's all that's out there on the street, and those are the people that they're accepted by the most.
I have a soft spot in my heart for homeless youth. I mean, it's my belief that young people should not be homeless, that it's not okay that there's people in our community, young people particularly, that are homeless. And my experience is when I talk to people in the community and we start talking about how many kids are homeless, and how many kids that don't have a place to stay, that are living under bridges or couch to couch, that there's a lot of people that are touched by that and want to help.
I think it is harder for youth to be homeless. One, because they have no idea how to get what they need, and a lot of the youth that age out of foster care have been on medication, and so suddenly they're not. And so there's this, you know, kind of bounce back, throwback thing that's going on with not being on medication anymore, and whether they needed it or not, there's still going to be some side effects. They're victimized, you know, much easier. They're looking for family, so they will kind of associate with people as sort of a family unit kind of thing. They don't know how to talk to people to get what they need. They're just so much more vulnerable than an adult who has like some savvy and understands about things. The girls that become homeless are just immediately victimized, immediately pressed into trafficking and, you know, trading for a roof over their head and food.
I have been picked up, tried to be picked up so many times, you know. Anywhere I go, it's like men are trying to holler at you and just trying to like, hey, well, get in my car, you know. I had some, you know, attempts, people getting out of the cars and trying to come towards me, you know, try to get me into the car, and like, you have to be mean, you can't be nice, you know. When you're homeless, you gotta stay by yourself basically, and you know, I mean, it's kind of hard getting picked up or hollered at, or you know, people making comments, and it's like, leave me alone.
The thing that I learned about these kids, and mainly the ones that I've gotten to know through Angel Reach, and the reason I can get to know them is because they're there every single day. And they don't all live at Angel Reach. They may live in an apartment somewhere close by, but they come and go, and there's this feeling of family, because there are kids that do live at Angel Reach in the housing that they have on campus. But they have a kitchen, and you know, I've noticed the kids like to hang out in the kitchen at the kitchen table, and so I kind of plop myself down in that environment, and I just give it a little time, and they warm right up, and then they start sharing some of their stories. And one thing that I think I've learned from these kids is that the ones that had maybe one relative in their upbringing that was nurturing and caring seems to have made a difference in the outcome of them. They, the ones that had no relative that was very nurturing are still struggling. They're in and out of the program. They can't hold down a job. The ones that seem to do better are the ones that have actually had that one relative. And it's so powerful to see for yourself firsthand how these kids are learning just the basics, everyday life.
I mean, people are there for you, you know. Like, when I was homeless, I'm just gonna say this, like, when I was homeless, I don't have a mom, dad, or any of that, so I started building up a family when I was homeless, and I built up a mom, a father, and like a grandpa, because he was really old. So they were really protective of me, and they wouldn't let me walk around by myself because, you know, I was really young, and me just being there, you know, anything can happen any time of the day. So, like my mom, when I claimed my mom, she left, and you know, she taught me so much in so little bit of time, and my dad as well, and my grandpa. So it's like they all left, so it's kind of like hard, but you know, I'm doing good. I mean, it's good to have people come in and out of your life. They're there for a reason, not just to, you know, be there, you know. And you have to pick and choose, you know, your battles, basically.
Crystal came to us directly from foster care. She had been in foster care for about 4 years, but she should probably have been in foster care a lot earlier because she ended up spending way too much time with a mother that was very abusive, and Crystal had to defend herself and her sisters and take care of them. Crystal has been abused by many people and is very distrusting. But when she does trust you and she does love you, she loves you a lot, and she loves you really hard, and sometimes it's overwhelming. But she has been in our program, been discharged, been a day client, got in trouble, got discharged again, come back again, and each time she comes back, she's learned more. She's working on herself more. She's always trying to be better. She's always trying to learn something more about herself and how she can better interact with the world. She's not perfect. She makes mistakes, but she's learns from them, and she is very, whereas before where if you had pointed out a mistake or you had tried to correct her, she would be so angry that she would be gone for hours and it would be a big blow up, and now she is learning to stop and listen and now even self-correct. And she is learning that the world is not as terrible place as she thought it was.
The good experience is that you learn a lot of motivations, you know, like I don't want to be like this, I don't want to end up like this. I mean, it's like motivation, and then you learn a lot. Learn yourself, for one. You got time to figure out who you really are instead of like no one, but you gotta know like who you really are to make it out in the world. You know, sometimes like I always sit back and I always think like God has really, you know, put me on the streets for a certain reason. He made me go to the bottom because like I'm hard-headed. Yes, I am, but I'm not so hard-headed anymore. Like I understand, I take time in the day to know and understand and, you know, why things are happening. So I think God really put me on the streets for a reason. Oh, the process, oh my gosh, like I used to be a bad person, like had a bad attitude, didn't want to do anything, just sit there and drama. But now I'm doing a lot, like I'm going to school, just got my job back today, and then, I mean, there's so much, you know, there's a lot of stuff. I'm doing housekeeping in the hospital because like I'm starting from like the really bottom, you know, learning the simple things in the hospital like nurses don't even know. So I'm working on getting my CNA, and later on getting my RN, and probably my doctor's degree or a physical therapist degree. I've always been interested since I was little. I just love helping people, especially the old people. But now that they're sick, I can help them. And that's it. And I think it's my time to give back by helping others that how much have I been helped. When Terry gave me the camera, I was like stunned, didn't know what to do with it, just went out, took pictures, and just did it. I didn't expect nothing, didn't know it would go this far. I just started like that.
Recently, some statistics have just come out kind of telling us what is the number of homeless youth here in the United States. And the most recent data that we have nationally tells us that just under 1.3 million youth are experiencing homelessness in the United States. And that's an increase of 8% from last year's count. The challenge with working with this population is really knowing how many are experiencing this and who we're working with. A lot of youth who are experiencing homelessness stay hidden. As you can imagine, there's a stigma attached with being homeless. You don't want your friends to know that you're homeless. You go to school, you go to different events, and you try to hide that fact. So it's really difficult to get a number. But one of the things that we're doing with community youth outreach is an organized count that we will be launching very quickly. We're actually planning that right now so that we can get a good number for Montgomery County so we can know exactly what we're dealing with so that we can provide really good solutions for our youth here.
I hope what we're doing is inspiring people and helping them to see there is a world out there that many of us don't even know exists. These children are living lives that we cannot even imagine. And we have an opportunity to help save them and to help put them back into a life where they can go on and create these beautiful lives and impact the lives of people around them.
They've lived in a world where they could come home from school and they are at a place and the worker's standing there with their bags packed going, "You're moving to another place." And that could happen. Or they could be at school and the worker picks them up and they don't even get to go get their stuff. They don't get to say goodbye to anybody. They don't get to, they leave that school and start at another school. There are kids in this program who have moved 14, 17 times. After a while, you stop building relationships because what would be the point? You stop caring about your stuff because you've left it here, or it's been left there, or the people said they were going to send it and they never did. You just hope that you have your precious little photographs that you know that of your original family. So there's a lot of stuff to work on.
The thing I'm excited about with Picture This, and the thing that struck me when Terry and I visited, was that she wanted to get it from the perspective of the homeless. And one of the things I believe is that we can't really understand a kid, a young person, until we understand their experiences. So one way they've been able to do that is through pictures. And that, to me, is even more powerful than words when people see the kind of conditions that young people have lived in. I mean, that just really strikes at people's heart. And for a county as affluent as Montgomery County is, people say that's not okay. We don't want that in our community. And I think the Picture This initiative is certainly going to increase awareness, is going to allow us to, to do even bigger and better things. And my goal is to eliminate homelessness amongst all people, but certainly amongst our young people. And I think this project will help us do that.
One of our youth, his name is JJ, and he came to our program after being in jail, after having a failed adoption, after being in foster care. And he was very hurt and very resistant to change. And he had a lot of strong feelings that he didn't want to deal with. So he was self-medicating with marijuana and was not interested in giving that habit up. And so after many attempts to convince him that outpatient would be a good plan or drug rehab would be a good plan in order for him to stay in our program, we had to discharge him. And he was homeless for quite a while, breaking into some of our sheds on our properties and sleeping there, even sleeping in one of our trailers, sleeping in the park, wherever he could get a place to stay. And at that point, he was a day client of ours, and he was still receiving some services. But when we passed a policy that our day clients had to be drug-free also, we lost him for a while. But he came back after a couple of months because he missed the interaction and the familyness of being with our program. And he really, the thing that he missed the most was being able to go to guys' night out, where a group of men come up and take the male youth to go bowling or play pool, and just kind of hang out with them and talk to them. And that was his main reason for coming to get tested again, so that he could go out on that outing. He got a job at Waste Management, would ride his bicycle there every morning, and then work throwing trash all day, and then ride his bike home, and it was not close. Started paying his bills, taking care of his business, got an apartment, and was pretty happy. And he had borrowed some money from us, or we had helped him with a deposit for his apartment, and he was paying that back also. And then one day he came to the house, and I was about to go home, and I picked up my purse, and there was a little note on the top of the purse that said, "Do not open until you get home." And so I waited till I got home, and I unwrapped this little paper that was wrapped around my purse handle, and it was, in the inside was a note that said, "Happy birthday, Sandra, Miss Sandra, this is for you, for just you." And there was a $100 bill in it, which is probably took him a day and a half to make.
We feel like one of the things that we need to do as the coalition to do for the community is to do more education and awareness so that people have a better understanding of what homelessness may represent or what living in poverty represents. There's a lot of people have a preconceived idea that it's because people are lazy or they've made the choice not to work, or a variety of things that we hear. And we know that in working with clients, there's not one explanation for why people are experiencing homelessness or about to be homeless, or some of the other life challenges that we see that bring them into the agencies that serve them. So our goal is to help the community understand and then help the agencies be able to tell their story so that the community knows if they want to support a certain agency with what they're doing with a program or other things, that they would have enough knowledge to do that. There's a great book out called When Helping Hurts, and so we want people to understand that there's the right way to help people that can empower them and not just constantly doing handouts that become just constant relief. That we want to work together so that what we see as we work with people is that they become active members of our community, and again can be involved in the life of the community that makes the difference in a good way.
Getting to know the kids at Angel Reach has been an especially wonderful experience because they are so full of life, and they've come from, in many instances, such dire circumstances, and yet you see such hope in them and such promise for the future. It's just been a privilege to get to know them. Crystal is someone who I've had an opportunity to visit with several times, and she has actually come and spoken at several of our homemade events. She has a very powerful story, and when she talks about the redemption that she has found, the forgiveness that she has been able to exhibit to the people around her who have hurt her terribly, and just the power of her life as she moves forward as this beautiful young woman, this wonderful mother. It is so inspiring to me, and I know it's very inspiring to our board of directors and our volunteers, all of us who work with Homemade, just to see that we get to play a small part in helping people accomplish independence and go on to live this abundant life.
grew up in Aurora, Colorado. From birth to the age of about 9, I was in Colorado living with both parents. They were still married. They, didn't argue, didn't fight. And a house just like this one, 2 stories, pool, dogs. Always went out on family outings every Thursday, because that's when Mom and Dad were both off. But as you start growing older and you start realizing that things aren't always as nice as they seem, you start to get the picture and realize how everybody else has almost a similar or better life than you do. No matter how many chains you can throw around your neck or how good you dress, it doesn't change who you are underneath. And growing up, I had to realize that my best friend I ignored forever until he died. Was the only person that was keeping me out of YDC, youth detention centers, and mental hospitals. It was my dad. Because when he died and got sick, when he got sick, we went to go live with him, and when he couldn't take care of us anymore, my mother took custody and put me in hospital after hospital, and kept making up every excuse in the book to keep me away, until she finally filed for DFACS and said she wanted nothing to do with me anymore. Well, before I got here, I was at another placement. I was there for 5 months. I didn't really fit in, and I just, I was on the verge of getting thrown out, and then I found Angel Reach. They kind of found me, really. And at first I was reluctant to go, but when I got here, the selfless acts of people telling me, well, hey, we'll help you get your license. I'd heard that before hundreds of times, and no one ever did. But she immediately paid for me to get my driver's education and now have my license. She told me she was going to help me get a job that I could do, and there were no broken promises here. I pretty much, I'm trying to start college classes for nuclear technology in January. I wrote this poem. Originally I wrote it a few years ago, but I rewrote it and added a little more onto it because you know, I realized I was still wearing that mask. It's 1,000 Smiles by Wade Booker. 1,000 smiles worn like a mask to hide this pain, this sadness, a false light to my unending darkness. Why do I rest shrouded by dark thoughts? I live in fear of the unknown. Forever am I lost, but an inkling to the shadow looming over my life. A permanent frown rests on my face, intense emotion boils hot in my blood, scorching my ever so delicate heart into the nothingness I have become. The beauty of my madness lies in the doubt that if ever I was normal, would the world ever truly accept me? No, of course not. Thankfully, I have a mask of 1,000 smiles. And the second piece that I had added, growing up in a rich and prestigious family, having to switch to poverty and homelessness was a big wake-up call. I had to realize there were things money couldn't buy. My family's love was one of them. To this day, my brothers and sisters continue to grow in number. I am blessed day by day. I have tasted the sweet nectar of the good life as well as the sour bitterness of being alone. And I want to add something to that. It's someone asked me a few days ago if I inherited a large sum of money, what would I do with it? My reply was absolutely nothing, because money cannot buy happiness.
We've been looking at some other cities, kind of what are people doing to help bring solutions to this. And as you look nationally and just see what's working for those who are experiencing homelessness, one of the things that has really been successful is the housing first model versus stability first model. And I know that kind of goes against the grain for how most of us think. I know how I think. Usually if you're going to give someone a home, they need to show that they can handle the responsibilities of a home. But what's been shown to us through research and through other cities and states is that when you put someone in a house first, then they can become stable. And when you think about it, it really makes a lot of sense. As you look back at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he talks about the very first thing that is needed is for someone to have their basic needs met: food, shelter, safety. And when you have those needs met, then you're able to progress up to self-actualization. So when you look at someone who is without a home, it's very hard for them to be able to become stable, to maintain employment, to do all the things that they need to do to provide for themselves.
To the volunteers that want to help kids like us, just, I mean, as bad as it might sound, treat us like you would your dog. If we're afraid, come down to our level. Let us, see you, if you stand over us and say, hey, get in the car, we're going to run. I've had people do that to me countless times. As big as I am, they still do that, and it freaks me out, and I run. But one person reached out her hand and said, look, you can take my hand or you can go out and try and survive. I took her hand. I'm fine.
I guess I would just say that there's something that everyone can do. I think, again, gather the information, spend some time getting to know what the situation is and to understand the need. We are seeing a lot more situational homelessness in our community and really throughout the nation. People who have lost those good paying jobs and are thinking they're going to be rehired anytime, so they go through all of their savings and everything, and before you know it, they've lost their home and they're on the street. So there's a lot of things to be learned, that there's not a stereotype that really fits for what we call homelessness or people living in poverty. It's a wide variety, and I think that people deserve to be able to tell their story, and for us to not be too skeptical about what they're saying, that there is a lot of truth to what people are facing on a day-to-day situation that is a challenge that creates the needs that we're seeing in our community.
I think one of the things that people need to know about working with these youth is that it's not a quick fix, it's not a straight road, it's an up and down, it's a planting a seed, it's building trust, it's being there for them. It's not pretty, it's not a Hallmark commercial, it's difficult work, but it's so incredibly rewarding because, you know, just seeing them start to have hope for the future and seeing them thinking about possibilities of things they could do with their life when most of their life people have just told them they're not going to amount to anything, and those comments have come from their parents, their foster parents, their school counselors. No, don't apply to college, you're not really college material. I mean, those kind of statements make an impact on them. The staff that takes care of them in these facilities have not encouraged them to be great, and I think having a community and a support system of volunteers and mentors, it really makes a difference to them. You talk to some of the youth who have been in our program for over a year and they've passed their survival mode and they're now in the area of, okay, somebody helped me, now let me help somebody else. And they start thinking about that possibility. They start thinking about their spiritual being and trusting that, you know, God will take care of them forever, and that maybe people aren't perfect, but it's better to have relationships with imperfect people than have no relationships at all. It's a learning thing. It takes over 2 years for them to really change the way they think. So it's not a quick fix, but it's definitely worth it.